I just got out of an advanced screening of Mission Impossible 7 Dead Reckoning, and well, we gotta talk about this movie.
The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
Now before we get into anything, today's video is a spoiler-free review. We'll do a spoiler-filled review over on Patreon, so join us over there at patreon.com/worldclassbs to hear that and a whole lot more about the film. But here on YouTube, we don't want to spoil that for anybody out there that wants to see this film, and listen to this review because you're definitely going to want to see this movie. Now, I've enjoyed all the Mission Impossible movies except for 2 and 3. I can never decide which I hate more, Mission Impossible 2 or Mission Impossible 3. Neither of them offer very much merit to me, but luckily they soft rebooted the franchise in 2011 with Mission Impossible 4, Ghost Protocol, and the rest has been a series of films that I've enjoyed, and I can't decide which is the best Mission Impossible anymore. And since their inception, the Mission Impossible films have been some of the best action films of their respective years. This film, Dead Reckoning, lives up to that hype. This time the story is about a rogue AI that can learn and leave no traces of its existence. Governments around the world want to get it, and of course there's only one man who can stop this, and of course it's Ethan Hunt. Again, Tom Cruise gives another strong performance as Ethan Hunt, but Tom Cruise isn't the only standout performance in this film. The rest of the team, played by Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg, and Rebecca Ferguson, all deliver top quality performances as well. They all feel natural in their roles. I believe the characters all cared about each other, which is rare in today's films where most characters are aloof and snarky. If you hate the modern trope of unlikable characters playing the hero role, well, don't worry about that with Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, because all the characters are likable, and you'll definitely want to see more of them in the sequel. What was refreshing is the fact that the characters all seemed to care about each other. You understood that they would die for each other, which is rare again in these movies, because if you watch a lot of superhero films, all the characters display how annoyed they are with each other, and well, when it comes down to the 0 hour to save each other, they do, but that usually feels a little jarring. That's not the case here. The team works well together, and I love this setup. Over the last couple of films, they've been building this team up, and again, they continue to do that very well here. Outside of the team returning, we also have Vanessa Kirby returning as well. She was fun in her first appearance, and well, she's fun here again. Can you sense the trend here in this movie? Fun is the operative word. The new cast members are all entertaining as well, and they feel necessary to the plot. Most ensembles have tacked on characters, but all the players here elevate the movie. Grace, played by Haley Atwell, is at the center of all this, and like all other Haley Atwell performances, she's solid. Palm Clemente, that we mostly know as Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy, plays a Parisian assassin who chases the IMF across the globe. While not as funny as Mantis, or funny at all, this character pair stood out as a memorable henchman. Now I can spend the rest of the review commenting on the acting from Cary Elwes or Henry Czerny, who's back from the first movie as Kitteridge, but just know this, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning is a film where the acting is not a problem. Now while you're expecting me to say the action is the best part of the movie, the biggest strength of this film is the poignancy of the plot. Artificial intelligence is a topic we discuss daily. Will AI take over humanity? Will computers replace people? Well, this film addresses that and the dark side of technology. It was at times scary watching this film because normally these world-ending threats seem too fantastical to happen. But in this film it all feels very possible because it's what we're currently living in. It was smart for this film to take that approach. It adds relatability and it gets you invested in the film more than nukes, chemical weapons, or a crime syndicate. This film wasn't afraid to show the dark side of power either. Avoiding spoilers, this film paints a very real picture of what countries with this powerful technology would do. That level of realism raises the stakes and makes you ask the question, who are the real good guys in 2023? Is it the US? Is it Russia? It's a question asked in the past during the Cold War, but things are heating up again, and it's a question we'll have to answer again very soon. Without going into spoilers, the story hits all the great action beats you'd expect from a Mission Impossible film, and a few new ones. My only complaint was a bit of drawn-out humor that killed the tension in one scene. Since there are 2 Marvel actresses, they had to copy a bit of the Marvel formula. Thankfully, it was only in that one scene. What everyone seems to care about is the action, and this movie has it all. Car chases, fighting, Tom Cruise running. A lot. There's rarely a dull moment in this movie. The climax on the train is wonderful. It's a bit reminiscent of Uncharted 2, but it's still very exciting. There's one scene that borrows heavily from Tomorrow Never Dies, and while I'll say this film is better than Tomorrow Never Dies, the scene it pulls from wasn't as executed as well here. As they say in the Bond films, nobody does it better. Again, more on that in a moment. This film is very refreshing when compared to other films released this year. The obsession with the multiverse content creates films that lack a unique identity. Films like The Flash and Ant-Man failed to be unique enough to even be remembered. How many times can you pay to see the same characters over and over again and it still be exciting? The answer is not very many. Another film to compare to this one is Indiana Jones 5, which pales in comparison in terms of action. While Indiana Jones is an old property, Mission Impossible has been around in cinemas for nearly 30 years, and the films have continued to get better since their unofficial reboot in 2011. That can't be said for other franchises with this many sequels. There's something special about Mission Impossible, and Tom Cruise and the rest of the cast and crew definitely get what makes Mission Impossible unique, and they continue to do that with this film, Dead Reckoning. Overall, this film is very good. It's well acted, it's well paced, and the action will have you coming back for more. Speaking of more, this is a two-part film, yet it feels complete. Unlike other two-parters, the story doesn't abruptly end. It sets itself up for a sequel, but gives you a satisfying story that leaves you wanting more, not scratching your head. The one thing I couldn't stop doing while watching this film was comparing it to the most recent James Bond film, No Time to Die. The James Bond franchise used to be the premier in action espionage films, but as of late, it's fallen off. Those films, though they have the same screen time as these Mission Impossible films, feel a lot longer, drawn out, and sometimes overly emotional. James Bond has always been a caricature, an avatar for the audience, to see themselves on the big screen. Women want to be with James Bond, and men want to be James Bond. But over the last few years, they've turned James Bond into a sad, pathetic, weak man, who thankfully is no longer alive in the films. Somehow, Mission Impossible doesn't have that problem. When comparing these two movies side by side, Mission Impossible hits the action notes even better than James Bond's No Time to Die, has the emotional scenes, but it doesn't feel cheesy, corny, or over the top. It doesn't fall into the same tropes of James Bond being an absentee father or all those other dour, depressing, deconstructive elements. Deconstruction is probably one of the worst things to happen in modern film. It's the writers trying to prove how smart they are, but in reality, it should be the writers focusing on an entertaining time for the audience, which Mission Impossible does very well. Before I leave the James Bond comparisons alone, I really can't think of anything that James Bond does better than Mission Impossible these days. And then again, this is a guy whose favorite fictional character is James Bond, so it's very hard for me to say these things, but it's also very hard for me to lie about James Bond. Ever since Daniel Craig took over the role, James Bond hasn't been James Bond. That reboot lost the soul of James Bond, the fun of James Bond. 007 wasn't even 007 for most of the last movie. Thankfully, that's not the case here with Mission Impossible. Sometimes people want dependability, not predictability, and you can depend on Mission Impossible to deliver again and again. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give this movie an 8. There's not a whole lot to complain about. If you like these types of espionage action thrillers, then you'll like this film. If you liked Top Gun 2, then you'll like this film as well. Mission Impossible avoids the modern problems that plague modern films, and left me wanting more. After the disappointing Indiana Jones 5, I needed a refresh, and I'm glad I went to see this film because it was exactly what I needed. Film franchises with many sequels usually scare off people, but don't be afraid of watching Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. It's a good film that has great action, good acting, and a whole lot more. And that plot, that's my favorite plot to any Mission Impossible movie, because it's what we're living in right now. Knock lists, government interference, all those things in the past are problems in the real world. I don't know if a knock list is real, but the rogue AI is very scary, as we have fake voices, fake images, hell, there are dating profiles with fake people on them, all generated by AI. And this film takes that fear, ramps it up just a little bit to 11, and gives us something that I can't wait to watch again. Now folks, I went to see this at an advanced screening, but I paid for my own ticket, so there was no freebies, no giveaways, nothing like that. This review is based on my own experience watching the film. And now I want to know what you think. Tell me down in the comments below. Have you seen this movie already? If so, did you like it? I'll go as far to say this is my favorite movie of the summer, maybe even the year. Super Mario was a really good film, but a lot of movies this year have kind of left me disappointed. Indiana Jones, The Flash, Guardians of the Galaxy was pretty good, but not great, not as great as the other two. And I'm getting tired of the same old shit from Marvel, Disney, and basically any other form of entertainment. I can't begin to describe how disappointed I was with Indiana Jones 5, so instead of me trying to tell you right now, go back and listen to our full review over on the channel. But needless to say, if Indiana Jones 5 was as good as Mission Impossible 7, well, this would be a much different review. So folks, I gotta get out of here, but I'll be back next time with more. Join us tomorrow for Good Morning Pop Culture as well as the High Council. Also, again, join us on Wednesday for our new show, Writers on Writing, and then on Thursday for World Class Bullshitters, the epitome of pop culture, episode 366. But until then, folks, be smart, be safe, be cool. Be sure to check out all of our videos that are dropping every day on our way to 200,000. We're getting close, so spread the word. Let's all do this together. We're growing the community. We're coming back stronger than ever. 2023 is the year we're hashtag building a better bullshitters. So, folks, thank you for watching. Be smart, be safe, be cool, but always be excellent to each other. Thanks for watching today's video. Yes, it's over, but don't cry because there's more, a lot more from World Class Bullshitters. And there's only one way to get it. Hit that subscribe button below. When you do that, you'll get notifications and updates from World Class Bullshitters every time we go live. Basically, you won't miss anything. And if there's one thing I hate, it's FOMO. But the thing most people hate more than FOMO is fear of missing out on World Class Bullshitters, because there's just some things you can't undo. So folks, do yourselves a favor and never miss anything from World Class Bullshitters. One last thing before you go, hit the thumbs up button. Not for our egos, no, they're big enough as this, but it does help us fight the algorithm here, and well, it's man versus machine, and that's the real fight. But if that's not your battle, that's okay. There's one last way you can help WCBS, and that's going over to shopwcbs.com, picking up a t-shirt, a beer glass, a sweatshirt, a poster, all sorts of ways to back WCBS. The difference between us and other YouTube channels is I'm the artist that makes all this stuff, so if you enjoy art beyond t-shirts, you can even read our comic books. We got it all. We're called the epitome of pop culture for a reason, and no, again, it's not for our egos. So folks, make sure you're involved with every aspect of World Class Bullshitters, not just for us, but do it for yourself. We're making the change in entertainment everybody out there wants to see. And a special thank you goes out to all of our wonderful patrons who make this content possible. Go to patreon.com/worldclassbs to get involved and help out the channel.